Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of The Arrow. And wow, a lot went down. This was a good episode. We picked up right where we left off in last week's episode with the mayor getting shot through with an arrow, and then Felicity being in the crosshairs of the next shot. And of course, Ray moves her out of the way and gets hit with an arrow as a result. So Ray ends up in the hospital, and he says to the doctor, "What would you say if I made tiny little robots that could enter my bloodstream and shrink this blood clot that I have in me?" And he's like, "Well, I'd say that you need to go to the psych ward." And he's like, "Okay, well, let me go get my nano device, which I invented, and let's do it." And the doctor's like, "Well, we can't use any kind of technology that hasn't been tested before." So of course we get the arrival of Felicity's mother, and she's all goo goo gawing over Ray, and she convinces Felicity that she's going to have to be the one to inject Ray with these little with the nano device. And she's all like, "I'm not going to do it because I don't want to kill him, and if something goes wrong," she's like, "Well, he's either going to die or he's going to die," right? So it's one of the two. So Felicity decides to inject him with the nanotech, and it works. He has like a bit of a seizure, but then it seems that the blood clot was shrunk in him, and he's as good as new, or at least we're to assume that he is as good as new. So all that stuff was going on, but yet there was the much bigger picture that was happening. Felicity's mom showing up was fun because she's all that sex bot kind of mom, and she's flirting with the doctor, or she's trying to flirt with the doctor. She's flirting with Ray. She's she's just that quirky mom that you're so embarrassed by. But I think she's a nice little addition to the show, and it also gives Felicity somebody outside of just the Scooby Gang to be around. So we had the return of Nissa in this episode, and she was helping the group find Maceo and the safe house. So she's like, "Don't mistake me helping you for me helping you, in this fight, because that's just not going to happen." But of course, she shows up just in the nick of time to save Laurel from her father, who is clearly out for revenge right now. And I like it. So, we start off the episode, and he's got a manhunt out for Oliver. He's all over the airways saying that the vigilantes should be taken down. Pretty much by any means necessary type deal. Well, he's kind of like, don't kill him, but it's like an all points bulletin out, and for anybody that's assisting him. So of course that means Roy and Laurel and Diggle and the rest of the gang, right? So there's this really intense fighting scene, which is awesome, and then the cops are chasing them. This is like one of the first times that we've seen like a really good chase scene, and it sort of goes in three different directions because Roy goes one way, Laurel goes another way, and Oliver goes in another direction, and Diggle's on a rooftop trying to help them all out, but he kind of loses sight of some of them. So at one point, Laurel goes down this alleyway, and her father is literally right behind her, and he has the gun pointed at her, and she's like, "What are you gonna do, shoot me?" And he's like, "Well, I want to basically arrest you and put you in a holding cell to knock some sense into you." And then Nissa shows up with an arrow, knocks the gun out of his hand. And she's like, "Sorry, Dad, I gotta go." And it's just like, I get it. Quentin is very upset. He's been lied to for a very long time. And, he wants justice. At this point in the episode, he does not know still who the arrow is. And he even asks Laurel, "Who is it?" And she won't reveal it. So, of course, we all know that this is all because Ra's al Ghul wants Oliver to be his predecessor, and he wants him to take over, but Oliver has refused. And so he has sent Maceo out there to do all of these horrible things dressed as the arrow, so that people who survive can say, "Look, the arrow is running around shooting arrows at people. He's not a nice guy, and we need to stop looking at him as though he's the hero of our city." So Ra's al Ghul then goes to Quentin Lance and reveals all. Well, first we have a really good fight scene between Maceo and Oliver, and then Ra's al Ghul shows up, and he's like, "See, I knew I chose the right guy to take my place." And of course, Oliver's still like telling him, "I'm not joining your forces. It's just not going to happen." And so obviously, Ra's al Ghul feels he needs to go at it another way. So he goes to Quentin, and he's like, I am going to reveal the who the arrow is, and you're gonna feel like so betrayed because he's been right under your nose the whole time. He was with your daughter on the boat, and he's like, the arrow is Oliver Queen. And we've already been down this road before in season 1 where he was accused of being the arrow and he was exonerated. So now that this has actually come back into play, it's very interesting. So Quentin goes on the airways once again and he says Oliver Queen is the arrow and there's a manhunt out for him and everybody should be looking for this man and let's get him in and take him down. Wow. So I'm like, woo, this is about halfway through the episode, about not even 40 minutes into the episode, and Quentin knows what's up. So that was really cool. Of course, everyone's freaking out because they're like, what are we going to do? Oliver, like, where's he going to go? So Oliver turns himself in, which was kind of cool too. So he turns himself in and he pretty much says, the truth is a very powerful thing. And I feel like in some way, like some weight has been lifted off of his shoulder because he's been wearing this mask for so long. He has had to pretend to be one person, and yet he has wanted to reveal truths, but he just wasn't able to. So I feel like there is a little bit of weight lifted off of his shoulders, but at the same time, now what? Like, who's going to protect the city with him being locked up? Like, and then of course the team is like, what are we going to do? We've got to figure out a way to help him out, get him out of here. And so they show up at the police station, and of course Quentin's like, oh, of course it's you three. And like, so it's Diggle, Roy, or 4 of them, Felicity and Laurel, all in regular clothes. So there's no mask, there's no gear. They're just there to see Oliver. So they go in and they're like, what are you doing? Like, you cannot do this. You're not going to fall on the sword for the rest of us. We're all in this equal parts, right? And Oliver's like, just do this for me. You've been with me this long. Just follow me to the end. And I mean, I would assume he's got a plan here, but he's pretty much falling on the sword for his team, which is kind of cool. And his sister wasn't in this episode very much. She was just up there at the beginning. Her and Roy hooked up, and that was what it was. But yeah, so we didn't really have too much of her, but she was, of course, still on the it's all Malcolm Merlin's fault bandwagon, which is true. That's not a bandwagon, it's the truth. So she's like, is there something that I'm not aware of? And obviously she still hasn't been told that Oliver has been asked to take over the league and as Ra's al Ghul. So I guess they will eventually tell her that, but that's one piece of information that she's not aware of right now. So when all that was going down, the city is just at a standstill, not a standstill, but there's just nobody there to protect the city at this point. And Roy decides he's got to do something. So when Quentin is taking Oliver, I guess, to his new prison, his new holding cell, he's having a really good conversation with Oliver, and he's like, what gave you the right to decide, make all these decisions for my family? And he's like, I loved your family. And then Quentin slaps him, and he's like, you have the right to remain silent, use it, because he's so angry with him. And he's like, you coming here pretending like, or saying that you want to protect all of us has done you what? Your mother's dead, my daughter's dead, all these people are dead, and with you claiming that you're going to protect them. And so clearly you're not doing a very good job. And then all of a sudden there's like a ruckus on the truck, and Quentin comes out the door, and then all of a sudden you see a man standing on top of the truck that looks like an arrow, and he jumps down. It's Roy. He's like, you've got the wrong person. I am the arrow. And it's like, really? I don't know. That was just kind of okay. But, Oliver's looking at him like, what are you doing? And I was like saying the same thing. But, hey, he's like his kid brother, right? And he's going to do whatever he can to protect his older brother. So, I like that the team is definitely sticking together. They're doing whatever they can to protect Oliver at this point. But I think it's a little too late. So, of course, we had some really interesting flashbacks in this episode. So, of course, a couple episodes ago, we had the reveal of Shado, or at least who we thought was Shado. And it turns out it was Shado's twin sister. I believe her name was May. And she was like, how do you know my sister? And, who are you? And he's all like, can you help me? There's people following us and I need to seek some shelter. So she takes them back to her place, Oliver and the young boy, Miseo and Tatsu's son. They take them back to her place. And she's like, so how do you know my sister? And he's like, claims that they went to school together or something. And then, he's like, can I take a shower? So he does. And then he takes off his shirt and there's a tattoo on his back, which matches his sister's tattoo or her sister's tattoo. So obviously she's like, what's up here? Because clearly you know my sister more than you're letting on to. Who are you? And she's like, well, I've called the police. And then all of a sudden gunfire ensues. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they start getting hit. They start getting hit by arrows, and it's Tatsu and Masao there to rescue Oliver because they followed them. So apparently these were Amanda Waller's people who are still trying to take down Oliver. It's like, dude, calm down. So obviously Masao's like, okay, we need to go. We need to get out of here. And we have a nice scene between May and Oliver because she's pretty much like, I don't know what's happened to my sister. Do you know what happened to my sister? It's been 3 years. I haven't heard anything. The police keep telling me this and blah, blah, blah. And of course, Oliver's not revealing anything until the very end when he says, look, you can't know too much about me because anybody who does will be put in harm's way. People that are trying to kill me will kill anybody that knows anything about me. And he says, I knew your sister. I loved your sister, which was a really sweet scene. And he's like, I loved your sister and I knew your father. And she's like, okay, so, like basically where are they? And he's just like, let it go. They're gone. And she was like, oh, she breaks down, she starts crying, and she's like, thank you for telling me. She's like, you have no idea what the truth, how powerful the truth is, which is what he says when he's in the police station. So it was nice a little call back to her at that moment. And once again, Oliver has some chemistry with the sister, so I'm hoping that she comes back to present time and, will have some kind of a role in Oliver's life moving forwards. So, one thing I missed out on is the fact that Ray told Felicity that he loves her, and then it was just crickets from her. Because, we all know that she's still in love with Oliver. And her mom pretty much says, yeah, you can't say you're in love with Ray because you're in love with Oliver still. And, Ray's like the perfect guy. He's handsome, he's rich, he's this and that, he's a great person. But, of course, she's still hung up on Oliver. And let's face it, she hasn't really been dating Ray for very long, so I wouldn't expect her to just say it now anyway. That just wouldn't have seemed true in any way. So anyway, a good episode. Lots went down. So Oliver's been revealed as the Arrow. Quentin knows. The whole city knows. Ra's al Ghul did a really good job of framing him, turning the whole city against him. Ray decides he's going to try to, take one for the team and pretend to be the Arrow. And some good moments with Laurel and her dad, and Laurel and what's her name? Nissa. Some good stuff there. Like all of it, just all seemed to work. And again, Ra's al Ghul is a very intriguing character, and I enjoy him quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the coming weeks. I believe the Arrow might be back next week or is on a break. I'm not sure. But this was a really good cliffhanger to end it on. Okay, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode, and I will see you when the show returns.